Well, alright guys, you all are about to learn probably one of the most requested recipes that I have ever done. Anybody that is following Food for Your Life on Facebook and or Instagram at Kevin J. Divine, I post the picture of this dish quite often. When we used to have a barbecue food truck, this was the most requested item as well, and I'll tell you about it. These are our black tie Q, as in black tie barbecue, sweet potato biscuits. Yep, finally putting the recipe out there for you all because I'm not in the biscuit selling business anymore. So, ingredients: 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. We have about a half cup of sugar, granulated sugar, 3 tablespoons of baking powder, 1.5 teaspoons of salt. In here is already mixed in, and 1.5 cups of cooked sweet potatoes. And I would say do baked sweet potatoes. If you boil them, there's going to be too much moisture added into the mix, and you don't need that added moisture for these biscuits. In addition, you also need a 1/4 pound of butter or a standard stick like yay. So what we're going to do to start off with this is take our flour, get that into a large mixing bowl. I keep about a pinch back just to flour up my rolling pin. And then what we do next with the biscuits is actually very key. It's not a technique that I came up with, but I did steal it, and I'm calling it my own for right now. Is we're actually going to use a box grater and grate the butter directly into the flour. When making any kind of biscuits, the fat dispersion, or dispersing the butter throughout the biscuit, is what gives it that flaky texture, as well as helps it rise when you put it into the oven. So we're literally just going to take this stick of flour and grate it like you're grating a piece of cheese for pizza or anything. And as you get some of these nice shards of butter in there, go ahead and take a second and kind of coat them in flour. That'll help them keep separate. And again, you're starting to spread that out. And then we're going to continue on through the rest of the stick. Now, when we had the barbecue food truck, some of my friends here local in the DC area will attest to these sweet potato biscuits. I'm not bragging on myself. It's just actually the recipe came together really well. People would come up and who weren't even ordering barbecue, and they would order a dozen of these biscuits. So much so that we literally had to constantly be putting batches into the oven throughout the afternoon when we were there selling there at our local church. We actually had to borrow their oven to do backups. It was crazy. And we would do it with a nice maple butter glaze. Really, really good. So we're going to take the butter all the way down to the nub. Again, and you want to move quickly with this. Definitely be careful of the edges of the grater, but keeping your biscuit dough and all of the ingredients cold is key, because if the butter starts to melt, you're going to have a problem. Your biscuits are not going to turn out right. Alright, so that's all the butter. Again, kind of tossing those butter flakes, shards, whatever. You could also do this in a food processor. I'm a by hand guy, unless of course I have to chop like 5 pounds of garlic, and then I'll definitely pull out the food processor. So mixing the butter into the flour. Then what we're going to do is take our sugar and the rest of our dry ingredients. So that's the granulated sugar, the baking powder, and the salt. Just go on and get your hands in there. Don't be afraid. If you're one of those weird people who don't like to touch the food that they're making, you can go ahead and get a whisk. That's fine. Alright, now is the time for the sweet potato. Another reason I like to bake the sweet potato and not boil it is that when you bake it, you start to caramelize the sugars that are in the sweet potato, so it really helps change the flavor and really brings it out, makes it a bit sweeter, if you could believe it. So I enjoy doing it that way. Again, this is a cup and a half. Feel free to do what you like. Whatever you do, do not use canned. You will have to unfriend me and unfollow me on all of my social media outlets. At this point, it is better to grab some sort of utensil to use. Set mine right in the sink. Because with the sweet potatoes going in there now, they tend to get really sticky. So just go ahead and start mixing it around. Once it gets a little incorporated, you can kind of see that you'll want to get your hands back in there again. Mixing. All right, at this point, you know, everything's kind of coated in flour. The sweet potatoes starting to disperse, and as you're going through and doing this, depending on the moisture level of the sweet potatoes, some of them do carry a bit more moisture than others, you may have to add a little bit of milk. Another way to mix this in would be with a pastry cutter, similar to something that you would use for pie dough. Again, you want to be mindful that the more that you warm this up and the more it comes away from that cold temperature, it's going to radically change the end product. So all the heat that your hands hold will actually start to melt the butter. So you want to handle this quickly, but at the same time thoroughly. Now you got all the butter lumps and flour and sweet potato all over your hands. So next, after I wash my hands off, we're going to turn this dough out onto the cutting board and start working it, folding it over. And again, guys, I'm at my house right now. I happen to be making these for a family brunch that we're going to tomorrow. So you see any mess on the camera, that's just how I roll in the kitchen, and I'll clean it up later unless my wife kills me. A little bit of flour. Spread it around. Now the dough might still be a little clumpy. It might still have a little bit of flour that hasn't been incorporated. It's okay. Just get it all in one place, and we're going to work it here for a second. It will come together very quickly. Just as you're mashing it like that, all that moisture from the sweet potato and the butter and everything is coming out. You should not have to add milk, but again, it is a possibility. But this is pretty moist, looks good. All right, now at this point, if you want to be super anal, you could throw this back into the fridge or freezer to help chill it a little bit. As I've said, this has been out for about 5 minutes now, maybe a little longer. Just getting all these little dabs of extra dough around the side. Looks like we need a little bit more flour. Just to kind of sprinkle around. Alright, handy dandy French rolling pin. Get some flour on this guy. A little bit on the top so it's not sticking. Don't put a lot of pressure on this, kind of let the pin do the work for you. And we got a nice biscuit dough here. I try and keep it relatively shaped like a rectangle, and I'll tell you why in a second, or I'll show you. Oh, these are going to be good. It's awesome. All the little flakes of chunk of sweet potato in there really helps make these biscuits special. And another reason why I don't want you to use canned, because it's all pureed, it's gross, it's got a bunch of chemicals in it and all that, and who wants that in their biscuits? This is my tool that I use to fold, and also when I'm making breads at home. You may have seen some other videos. what we're going to literally do is just like you would a letter, we're going to take one side and fold it over and another side and fold it over, and then we're going to roll it out again. This is where those biscuits get those nice flavorful and flaky layers, is because we're literally building them into the dough. So it's okay if it falls apart. One side over, next side over. I know it's not pretty. Y'all bear with me. And we're rolling again. Picture me rolling. Alright, getting a little too long for my cutting board. So again, handy dandy scraper. Turn it just like that. Another pinch of flour. If you feel moisture on your rolling pin, take a second and put some more flour on there. You don't want it caked, but the moment the dough starts sticking to, like this, the moment the dough starts sticking to there, you're going to start tearing up this dough here. We want it nice and smooth. Now, how many times you want to do this, completely up to you. I recommend at least 3. Again, flouring. That's how Grandma used to cook. Now, I did not get this recipe from my grandmother. To be honest with you, I don't remember where I got it from. But it is literally on a piece of a Post-it that has seen better days. This is my recipe right here. This thing has seen better days, and it's just something about it. I don't want to rewrite it because it's just got history. I'm sure that hung up in the food truck that we had years ago at some point as we were prepping. Alright, last fold. See how this is coming together? We've got layers. It's delightful. Now the layers with this biscuit dough are going to be a little less pronounced than you would see in just a regular buttermilk biscuit recipe or something like that. And it's just simply because of the level of moisture that the sweet potato adds. It really does affect the layering. However, you will still get them with this. Again, letting the rolling pin do the work. Marvelous. So yes, I am leaving the dough like this. It's about a 1/2 inch thick or so. You don't want it crazy thick, but you don't want it crazy thin, because it's only going to about double in size in the oven. So keeping it this size, I find, is good. Gives it a nice rise. It's perfect. Now, where everybody and their mother normally at this point is going to pull out a biscuit cutter, I do it a little bit differently, because again, the thing is that you're going to do a bunch of round circles, and then you're going to have all this leftover scrap, and you're going to turn that back into a nice piece like this. And as you're doing that, you're working the flour, you're working the butter, I think you're just doing too much. So I make sure that the dough is kind of easily moved, and this is, get a little bit more rolling pin here. And it does not have to be perfect, guys. Here's my cutter of choice. Pizza cutter. Here's why. I'm going to go right down the middle one good time. And then how big do you want your biscuits? Something like that, something like this. I'm going here. And again, not perfect, but they're going to taste perfect. You get some bigger ones on the end. If you cut it, they might be a little too small. I'm going to leave them that size. Now what I have is a 1/2 sheet pan. You can get these in most kitchen supply stores. But we're literally no spray or anything. This just has some parchment paper on it. Now if you're all about this has to be perfect and all that, and you want to cut all these edges off here, you help yourself. I ain't doing it. Literally going to line these up on our tray. The oven is at 450 degrees. Yeah, little guy looks like he's starting to stick a little bit. Just pull this out, or even a regular spatula. It'll come right up. And now we got a tray full of marvelous looking biscuits. Next thing we're gonna do, the oven's already on. We're gonna put this into the freezer. Yes, the freezer. You could put it in the fridge too, but I kind of want to get the process going. So we're gonna put it in the freezer for about 15 minutes just to chill back down the butter and everything that's in here to make sure that it's kind of solidified. We don't want to freeze them per se, but we want it kind of hard like a stick of butter. We're going to do that for about 15 minutes, and then we'll pull them out. We're going to pop them in the oven. I'll show you what we're going to do after that. All right, guys, it's been 15 minutes. Going to go in the freezer, grab my biscuits out. Going to make a lot of noise while I do it. Going to make my camera shake as I set this down, but it's all good. So they firmed up a little bit. They're still going to have some give to them, but they are going to firm up. You can handle them now. They're not going to be kind of waving around. I mean, this is good. We're going to pop this in the oven, 450 degrees. If you have a convection oven, which you know if you do or not, it's the one that blows the hot air throughout the oven. Take it down to 425, and we're going to start this at about 15 minutes. Again, depending on the thickness of your biscuits and everything else, it may fluctuate. We're going to check it after 15 minutes, and you want to cook them until they're kind of starting to turn brown on the top. Not dark brown, but a nice light brown. And if you want to cheat a little bit, you can always just kind of break off, you know, a corner of one of the more ugly ones, like this poor guy here, and just see if they're done. They are, again, not going to be as flaky and as dry as a regular biscuit, but you'll be able to look and kind of see that they're done. So give it about 15 minutes, you know, going on 20, you know, tops, and check them. And then once they're nice golden brown on the top, we can pull them back out. So into the oven they go. Timer, 15 minutes. And when these come out, we'll come back and I'll show them to you. All right, guys, 15 minutes is up. Now for the grand reveal. There they are. Notice it's nice and brown on the top. You touch them, they're firm. Bottom is nice and brown. So here's what I do from here. Pure maple syrup. Now look, listen, if you're using Miss Butterworth's, if you're using Log Cabin, we cannot be friends ever in life. Just take some of this pure maple syrup. Costs a little bit more, but the flavor is phenomenal, and the sweetness is just something very unique about it. It's not just that sugary, nasty, you know, Coca-Cola type sweet. And no offense for if you drink Coca-Cola, but you should stop. Anyways, I brush all these to give them that nice little sheen. Now what this will do to them is it's going to prevent them from continuing to have that kind of brown, quote-unquote, crispiness on the top, because obviously we're putting liquid maple syrup on them. It's just going to change it a little bit. Now, this is pure maple syrup. What I've done in the past is I've done equal parts maple syrup and butter, melted butter, and done that together. That's how we used to do them on the truck. And I mean, you don't need much, like 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. I've done them just with butter. I've done them, obviously, as I'm doing right now, just with maple syrup. If you're a real kitchen thug and you got some bacon drippings, you could, well, we'll put that on mine. Just if you're a kitchen thug. If you're not about that life, don't do this. But it's just a whole nother level of special right there. Guys, that's it. Sweet potato biscuits from Black Tie Q. I guess I should say the former Black Tie Q. We do not have the food truck anymore. We did some catering and we did some other ventures, and so we're done with that aspect of our life in food. But these right here are winners. You bring these to your family reunion, you bring these to the Christmas party, and you're gonna be very popular. I appreciate you guys. We're gonna do some more videos like this, just whatever I happen to be cooking at home on the weekends. I typically don't cook during the week, my wife does. But we're gonna put some videos up there for you guys. Just share it. That would be awesome if you could just share all of that. This is the bacon one. I'm gonna eat it. Oh yeah. Thank you, Jesus, for pigs. Share the video, guys. That'd be awesome. Doesn't cost you a thing. Not selling you anything. Like us on Facebook. We do some video previews on there. Sometimes we do some forums. And my Instagram is Kevin J. Divine. That's Devine. We do some stuff on there as well. So it's been real. I'm getting ready to finish my biscuit and probably go for a run. Be good.